My parents thought I'd hand over my loft to my golden brother's family, but my silent power move left them facing a brutal reality they never expected. Every family has a golden child. Ours was Marcus. Always Marcus. My name's Julian. I'm 33 years old, living in a modest two-bedroom apartment just outside Peoria, Illinois. I'm an architect. Practical, level-headed, dependable, the kind of guy people describe as nice and then promptly forget about. Marcus, though? He was unforgettable. He was the high school quarterback, the homecoming king, the guy who never tried all that hard but still got a standing ovation at every family function. And I was the quiet one. The kid who brought home straight A's and got a pat on the back, if that. When I was 8, I had a birthday party at a pizza joint with a few classmates. Mom forgot to bring candles for the cake, so we sang Happy Birthday with a flickering lighter stuck in the middle. That same year, Marcus turned 10 and got a backyard barbecue with a bounce house, a magician, and 30 screaming cousins. I remember standing off to the side that day, holding my paper plate of hot dog and chips, wondering why nobody ever made that kind of fuss for me. By the time I was a teenager, I stopped expecting much. It became a running joke, Marcus the star, Julian the reliable one. He flunked his math class sophomore year, and Dad called it a temporary setback. When I placed second in the state for a design competition in high school, Mom just nodded and asked if I remembered to take the trash out. It's not like Marcus was some tortured genius. He was charming and lazy in equal measure. When he won a local sportsmanship award, probably for not punching someone, they threw a steak dinner in his honor. Meanwhile, when I got my acceptance letter to the State Technical Institute, Mom said, "Well, at least you're staying close to home," like that was the only upside. They excused everything Marcus did. Got fired? The job wasn't a good fit. Drank too much at a wedding and made a scene? Boys will be boys. He missed our grandma's funeral because he was too emotional to face it. But when I didn't want to go to Thanksgiving the year after my breakup, Mom told me I needed to stop being so dramatic. I remember bringing home a project I worked on all semester, a scale model of a passive solar house. It won me a regional design award. Dad looked at it and said, "Nice. Did you build it all yourself?" Then turned to Marcus to ask if he was still thinking about trying out for the arena football team. It's not that I wanted to be the center of attention. I just wanted to be seen. But being dependable in my family meant you were useful, not valued, not praised, just leaned on. You were expected to do the heavy lifting while Marcus got credit for lifting a finger. Now, in my 30s, that shadow never really went away. Even when Marcus screwed up, he was the lovable screw-up. I was the guy who showed up on time, kept things running, and never got a second glance. It's funny, the way people talk about middle child syndrome. But for me, being the younger brother didn't mean I was ignored. It meant I was invisible unless someone needed something. And Marcus? He was always right there, standing in the spotlight, even when the stage should have been mine. Back when I was 17, I already knew what the plan was. I'd been accepted to the Mid-State Technical Institute, not some big-name university, but it had a strong architecture program, and it meant I could live at home to save money. I didn't want to put my parents out, especially knowing we weren't exactly rolling in cash. So I figured I'd keep my job delivering pizza on weeknights, chip in with bills, and do what I'd always done, make it work. The day I brought up tuition with my parents, I was nervous but hopeful. I'd saved some, sure, but I needed help with the difference, a couple $1,000s, maybe. Mom didn't even let me finish. "Julian, honey," she said, setting down her mug of coffee, "you know we're trying to support Marcus right now. He's got so much going on." Marcus was finishing up his sophomore year at a big out-of-state university. Not exactly making the dean's list, but the stories he told made it sound like he was majoring in keg stands and tailgates. I blinked. I'm not asking for everything. Just a little help. I'll live at home. Keep working. Well, Dad cut in. "You're old enough now. We think it's only fair that you start paying a little rent if you're going to stay here. Utilities too. Rent. Utilities." On top of school and delivering greasy breadsticks to drunk students at 11 p.m., Marcus never paid a dime when he was home for breaks. He left empty beer bottles and dirty laundry in his wake and still got praised for making it home in one piece. I said nothing, just nodded and excused myself to my room. But inside, something shifted. Not anger, not yet. It was more like a quiet crack forming in the foundation. That fall, while Marcus posted pictures from pool parties and frat mixers, I was dragging myself from class to work to home, falling asleep in my clothes most nights. I skipped meals, pulled all-nighters, and watched my classmates drop out while I clung to my GPA like it was a life raft. Every cent I made went to gas, books, and bills. And still, at dinner, the conversation was always about Marcus. His big plans, his networking connections, the important people he was meeting. Me? I was barely there. Once, I came home from work with blisters on my hands and an A on my final project. I laid the graded blueprint on the kitchen counter, hoping someone would notice. Instead, I found a note from Mom. Marcus needs help covering his rent this month. We're wiring him money. Can you put gas in the car tomorrow? That was the moment I stopped hoping. The resentment didn't come all at once. It built slowly, like layers of dust. And after a while, it became part of me. Something I carried without thinking, like the delivery bag slung over my shoulder. Marcus was going places. That's what they said. Me? I was already there, working, studying, grinding, but it wasn't enough. It never was. By the time I hit 30, I'd carved out a decent life. I had a steady job at a mid-sized architecture firm, a decent apartment downtown, and enough in savings to cover emergencies. I kept my head down, did good work, and minded my business. I was self-sufficient, which, in my family, was just another way of saying I didn't need attention. I stopped going to family dinners a while back. Too many nights sitting at that oak dining table, watching everyone fuss over Marcus and his latest drama like it was headline news. I learned pretty quickly that staying away gave me peace. So I kept my distance. Marcus, on the other hand, was still the family's biggest project. He got married in his late 20s, a whirlwind romance that somehow ended in 3 kids, a mountain of debt, and a steady stream of disasters. Every few months it was something. A broken-down car, daycare too expensive, rent too high, job didn't work out, someone stole his identity again. Always a reason to need help. My parents never hesitated. When his SUV finally died last winter, Dad handed over the keys to their old one and said it was a temporary solution. When Marcus lost his job for clashing with management, Mom told him to take his time figuring things out. Raising a family is a full-time job, she reminded me, like I wouldn't understand. The last time I visited, Dad pulled me aside and said, "Marcus is just under a lot of pressure. He's doing the best he can." I nodded, but inside I was screaming. Because I was under pressure too. Deadlines, projects, lonely nights in a city where I knew no one. But nobody ever handed me a car or a bailout. I didn't ask for it. That was the difference. When I mentioned a promotion at work, a senior design lead role I'd been working toward for years, Mom smiled and said, "That's nice, but Marcus and the kids are having such a rough time lately." As if my news was an interruption to the real story. Eventually, I just stopped sharing. I kept everything to myself. The job offers, the raises, the dates that never turned into anything. I didn't want to see it twisted into guilt, or worse, used to prop up whatever Marcus needed next. I became a ghost at family events. A warm body in the background, handing out birthday cards and taking polite photos, all while waiting for the inevitable turn in conversation. It always came. "That's nice, Julian, but Marcus could really use help right now." He always could. So I made myself small. And over time, the space I left behind just filled up with more of Marcus, his stories, his problems, his kids' milestones. And I stopped wondering if they even noticed I wasn't really there. Because I already knew the answer. I'd been living in the same apartment for almost 6 years, a small, one-bedroom unit over a coffee shop that roasted beans at 5 in the morning and made my whole place smell like burnt toast. It was fine, but I was ready for something better. A place that didn't feel like a stopgap. Somewhere that was mine. So I started house hunting in secret. Quietly. No big announcements, no social media posts. Just me, my laptop, and a spreadsheet with listings and mortgage calculators. I took tours during lunch breaks, talked to agents under a fake last name, and gave strict instructions to keep my information private. I didn't even tell my coworkers, except for one. Lena. She sat in the cubicle next to mine and had a habit of oversharing about her dating life. She wasn't malicious, just loud. I made the mistake of mentioning I was thinking about moving. That was it. That's all I said. The next week, Mom called me out of nowhere. "Julian, honey," she started, voice syrupy sweet. "We heard you might be looking for a place." My stomach dropped. "Who told you that?" "Oh, it doesn't matter," she chirped. "But listen, wouldn't it be lovely if you lived closer to Marcus and the kids?" I should have seen it coming. Within days, the suggestions started rolling in. Zillow links. Hand-drawn maps. Photos of 5-bedroom colonials just around the corner from Marcus's neighborhood. Mom talked like she was my real estate agent. Dad even called once to say he'd spotted a fixer-upper with real potential, plenty of room for guests. Guests. Right. The underlying message was clear, buy something big enough for everyone else. "It just makes sense," Mom said during one call. "You're not married. You don't have kids. But Marcus does, and he could really use the help." Help. Always help. I kept my voice steady. "I'm just browsing, Mom. Nothing serious." But they didn't believe me. Or maybe they did and didn't care. Every day brought a new, perfect listing near Marcus. Ones with in-law suites, finished basements, huge backyards. My inbox turned into a catalog of homes I didn't want, for a life that wasn't mine. I wanted a small, clean space. Something modern and quiet, not a sprawling family home with bunk beds and a swing set. I didn't want to be Marcus's backup plan. but saying that out loud would have started a war. So I smiled and nodded and played dumb, while privately marking houses 2 towns over, places where no one knew our last name. I narrowed my search to lofts with no yards and no extra bedrooms. Just enough room for one person and no room for expectations. Because I knew what would happen the moment they found out. They'd make it about Marcus. About the kids. About how a real man steps up when his family needs him. They'd twist my independence into selfishness. So I kept hunting in secret, knowing every day that passed brought me closer to a decision I couldn't take back. And when I finally made it, I didn't tell a soul. When Mom invited me to dinner, I knew it wasn't just dinner. She used her special voice, the one she reserved for holidays and strategic guilt. "We haven't all been together in so long," she said. "Just a quiet family meal." Right. Still, I agreed. Mostly out of curiosity, I wanted to see what kind of pitch was coming this time. I had a feeling it wouldn't be subtle. Dinner was at Marcus's house, of course. His wife, Amanda, had made her famous lasagna, which meant she heated up 2 frozen trays and added parsley on top. The kids were bouncing off the walls, and Mom was already halfway through her second glass of wine when I walked in. "Julian," she said brightly. "So glad you could make it. Sit. Dad gave me a pat on the back and a look that said nothing at all. Marcus grinned from across the table like he was the host of a game show. We made small talk for a few minutes. The usual. Work, weather, Marcus's kid needing braces. I could feel something building under the surface, like a storm that hadn't quite broken yet. And then it came. "So," Marcus said casually, leaning back in his chair, "we found the perfect place for you." I looked up. "Sorry. The house," he said. "Mom told us you've been looking. And, man, we found a gem." Mom slid a printed flyer across the table toward me. A big colonial with a wraparound porch, a backyard the size of a baseball field, and 5 bedrooms. "It's 2 blocks from us," Amanda chimed in, like that was supposed to be a selling point. I stared at the flyer. "This is huge." "That's the point," Dad said, suddenly animated. "Plenty of room. You could have the kids over after school. Marcus and Amanda wouldn't have to juggle so much. Plus," Marcus added, "you wouldn't be alone anymore." There it was. "Let's be honest," Mom said gently. "You're not exactly social. A place like this would bring you closer to family. To people who care." I folded the flyer in half. "It's a nice house," I said evenly, "but I already bought one." Silence. Amanda blinked. "Wait. What?" "I closed last week. A modern loft downtown. 1 bedroom. Great light." Mom's wineglass paused midair. "What do you mean, a loft?" Marcus frowned. "You're kidding." "Nope. But you didn't say anything," Mom said, her voice rising. "We could have helped. We could have found something better." "I didn't want help," I said. "I wanted a home." Marcus leaned forward, his smile gone. "So you're telling me you bought a 1-bedroom in some city condo tower while I'm over here juggling 3 kids and a busted HVAC? I looked him dead in the eye. "Yes." The room froze. Even the kids had gone quiet in the next room. "You're serious?" Dad asked. "As a heart attack," I said. "I wanted space. Mine. No bunk beds. No family traffic. No guilt. Just mine." Mom set her glass down hard enough that it sloshed. "You're being selfish." "You mean I made a decision that didn't benefit Marcus?" I said. "That's not selfish. That's finally drawing a line." Marcus's jaw clenched. "After everything we've done for you, what exactly have you done?" I asked, sharper than I meant to. "Besides make me feel like a support beam for your collapsing life?" Amanda stood up. "Maybe we should all take a breath." I stood too. "No need. I've said what I came to say." As I walked to the door, Marcus called after me. "You're turning your back on us." I stopped just long enough to reply, "I'm finally facing the right direction." And I walked out, the sound of stunned silence trailing behind me. The text started before I even pulled into my driveway. The first was from Marcus. A photo of his apartment, toys scattered everywhere, a leaking air conditioner visible in the corner, followed by a message that just said, "Hope you're happy." Then another. "Must be nice having all that space to yourself while your nieces and nephew are sleeping on a futon." I didn't reply. By the time I got upstairs, my voicemail was already full. My phone vibrated so much I just tossed it into a drawer. That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling while messages poured in. "Mom, you really broke your father's heart tonight." "Dad, we're not angry. We're disappointed. Family means compromise." "Mom again, you need to think about what this is doing to the children." Then the call started coming from numbers I didn't recognize. Extended relatives, friends of the family, people I hadn't spoken to in years suddenly had opinions. "Aunt Linda says you bought a penthouse and left your brother in the gutter. Heard you won the lottery. Can your own brother get a handout? Is it true you told your family to screw off?" The gossip spread fast. I guess they needed a villain, and I made a convenient one. At work, I caught coworkers whispering behind my back. One even joked, "You gonna make us sign a lease before we stop by for drinks?" I smiled politely and walked away. It was like my life had been turned inside out. Every boundary I'd built, every quiet decision I made for myself, twisted into something ugly. But I didn't answer. I blocked numbers. I deactivated my Facebook. I shut down the group texts. I changed my email address. And for the first time in my life, I didn't apologize for needing peace. I started taking long walks after work, headphones in, silence in my pocket. I rearranged furniture just because I could. I cooked for one, and it didn't feel lonely. It felt honest. I kept thinking about what Marcus had said, that I was turning my back on family. But I wasn't. I was turning my back on being used, on being the safety net, the ATM, the afterthought. Still, it hurt. I'd be lying if I said it didn't. There were nights I missed having someone to talk to, even if that someone was asking for something. I missed birthdays. I missed my niece's crooked little drawings and the way the youngest always hugged my leg like a koala. But every time I thought about picking up the phone, I remembered that dinner table. The way they planned my life like I wasn't sitting right there. And I knew that any crack in the door would be pried wide open. So I kept it shut, tightly, because this was mine now, the quiet, the space, the solitude. And for once, no one was reaching in to take it from me. It was a Tuesday, overcast, cold. I had just gotten back from the grocery store when I saw her car parked in front of my building, Mom's old beige sedan, the one with the faded "World's Best Grandma" bumper sticker. My stomach tightened. I stood in the lobby for a minute, hoping maybe she'd just drop something off and leave. No such luck. As soon as I stepped out of the elevator, she was already at my door. She had a cherry pie in her hands. I opened the door slowly. "Hi." Her face lit up, too bright. "Julian, sweetheart." She held the pie like a peace offering. "I baked. Well, store-bought, but I thought I'd stop by, just to talk." I stepped aside but didn't say anything. She took it as permission and walked in like she'd done 100 times before. She set the pie on the counter and looked around. "It's nice. Really nice. Clean. Quiet." I just nodded. She turned to face me, wringing her hands. "Look, I know things got tense. At dinner." I stayed silent. She sighed. "Marcus is just under so much pressure. 3 kids, Amanda not working, that old apartment. He's drowning, Julian. And we got caught up in it. You planned a house for me to buy, Mom. You handed me blueprints for someone else's life." She looked down at her shoes. "I know. And I'm sorry. I really am. It was never meant to make you feel small. We thought it would bring us closer. It didn't." "I see that now," she said softly. "We messed up. I messed up." There was a pause. I almost believed her. Almost. Then she smiled, that tight little smile. The one she wore when she wanted something but tried to look like she didn't. "I just thought, maybe when you're settled, you could have Marcus and the kids over sometime. They miss their Uncle Julian." There it was. The olive branch dipped in manipulation. I leaned against the counter. "I'm not ready for that." Her face faltered. "Julian, come on. Don't be like that." "I'm not being like anything," I said quietly. "I'm just not letting guilt make my choices anymore." She pressed her lips together, nodded slowly, then picked up the pie. "I'll leave this anyway. Cherry's your favorite." "It used to be apple." She hesitated, then forced a smile. "Right. Of course." At the door, she gave me a hug, stiff, brief, more performance than affection. As she walked away, I caught one last glimpse of her face. Polite smile. Cold eyes. That visit wasn't about making peace. It was about reasserting control. But I wasn't playing along this time. It was a Saturday afternoon when it happened. I just finished running errands, groceries, dry cleaning, picked up a new set of towels. Totally normal stuff. Nothing that could have prepared me for what I saw when I pulled into my parking space. Marcus's SUV was in my driveway. At first, I thought maybe he was dropping something off. Maybe Mom sent him. Maybe he was trying to apologize, though that was laughably optimistic. But as I walked up to the door and saw it slightly ajar, the knot in my stomach hardened into something cold. I pushed it open, and there they were. Marcus, Amanda, the kids, inside my house. Shoes off. Food on the counter. One of the kids was sitting on my couch watching cartoons. Amanda had a half-unpacked bag on the floor. Marcus was in the middle of hanging something, a photo of his family, on my wall. "What the hell is this?" I said. Marcus turned around casually, like I just walked into a barbecue he was hosting. "Oh, hey. Didn't think you'd be back this early." I stood frozen. "Why are you in my house?" He waved a hand like this was all perfectly reasonable. "Mom gave us the key. Said it'd be fine." "Fine." I repeated. "For what?" He looked at me like I was slow. "To move in. Temporarily. Just until we find something else." Amanda stepped forward. "It's just for a little while, Julian. The apartment's a mess, and the landlord's raising the rent again. You've got all this space." "You broke into my home." Marcus scoffed. "Don't be dramatic. You weren't even using the second bedroom." I looked around. Toys on my rug. Crumbs on my kitchen counter. A juice box sweating on my coffee table. "You don't live here," I said, my voice sharper now. You're not welcome here. Marcus shrugged. It's not a big deal. It's just easier this way. And Mom said. I cut him off. I don't care what Mom said. He raised an eyebrow. You're really going to make a scene? I'm calling the police. For a second, he laughed, like I was joking. Then he saw my phone in my hand. You'd call the cops on your own brother? Yes, I said. I would. He stepped forward, lowering his voice. Come on, man. Think about the kids. I am, I said. That's why I'm ending this now. They don't need to grow up thinking this kind of behavior is okay. I walked outside and made the call. Calm. Precise. The dispatcher asked if I wanted to press charges. I said no, not yet. I just wanted them out. The police showed up 20 minutes later. Marcus tried to argue. Amanda cried. The kids watched, wide-eyed, as officers calmly escorted them back to the SUV. As they pulled away, Marcus rolled down his window. You're gonna regret this, he said. You're not family anymore. I didn't answer. Just watch them go. The next day, I changed all the locks. Installed a security system. Had a cease and desist letter drawn up by a lawyer I'd met through work. I mailed it to Marcus, certified delivery. No more pretending. No more hoping they'd change. They didn't cross a line. They erased it. And I was finally drawing a new one, in ink. The locksmith came first. He was in and out in under an hour, whistling as he replaced every lock in the apartment, front door, balcony sliders, even the storage unit in the hallway. I watched silently, coffee in hand, trying not to look like someone whose entire sense of safety had just been shattered. Next came the security system. Motion sensors. Cameras. Alerts to my phone. I paid extra for same-day installation. That night, for the first time since I moved in, I slept with a bedroom door locked, not out of habit, but out of choice. The cease and desist letter had already been delivered. My lawyer said it was airtight. Any further intrusion, even a call or text, and I'd have grounds to file a restraining order. That wasn't a threat. It was a shield. Then I wrote the last thing I ever wanted to write, a formal letter to my parents. Not emotional. Not cruel. Just clear. I told them that if they attempted to enter my home, harassed me by phone, email, or through others, or involved extended family in any further campaign of guilt, I would pursue legal action. I ended it with a single sentence. I love you, but I will not sacrifice my peace to make space for Marcus anymore. I sent it, turned off my phone, and went for a walk. I wandered aimlessly for hours, down streets I'd never explored, through quiet neighborhoods with little libraries and kids' chalk drawings on the sidewalk. It should have felt freeing, but it didn't, not yet. Back at home, I stood in the doorway, looking at everything like I was seeing it for the first time. The exposed brick, the tall windows, the empty second bedroom they once tried to claim. Every corner was mine, every square foot of it. It felt hollow, not bad, just quiet. I sat on the floor, leaned against the wall, and let myself feel it. The grief, the weight, the finality. Because losing your family isn't like losing a friend. It's like losing a version of yourself you'd been trying to become for years, the good son, the helpful brother, the dependable one. You mourn what never existed, the version of them that would one day see you, value you, protect you back. They never did. But sitting there in that silence, something else began to settle in. Relief. Real, quiet, steady relief. I didn't have to keep proving I was enough. I didn't have to earn love that came with conditions. I didn't have to live in the shadow of someone else's needs. This life, this space, was mine. And from now on, I was building it on my own terms. Room by room. Day by day. Not for anyone else. Just for me.